speaker and a consultant, and I have a couple of books on the market focusing on protection, personal protection, and security. And today what I would like to do is spend a little time talking about the genesis of those books. One reason I want to do that, simply speaking, is the fact that there's a lot of activity out there on television and in the media now about terrorist attacks and the dilemma that's created by those terrorist attacks. And they're bringing a lot of people in to discuss those areas. And of course, all of these people are professional either in terrorist or in security or protection. They have companies or they've served in those roles. And those people, what I've noticed at the end of each of the interviews or during the interviews, about all the advice they have for the average citizen out there about protection is to be alert. And they leave it right there. Of course, these are sound bites, they're news clips, but they just leave it right there. The difference in what I wrote is that it wasn't written to help other professional security people become better at being professional security. It wasn't written as someone who's an expert in terrorism, but has spent a lot of time, probably the last 6 or 7 years, reading everything about that, learning about that, understanding the dynamics, and kind of beginning to synthesize what all that meant for me as an average person. Not a security specialist, not someone who was going to practice as a security professional, but someone who actually has to live wondering, what do I do to keep this from happening to me if I happen to travel a lot overseas or abroad, or if I happen to go to the mall, or I go to a theater, I go to a restaurant, and all those places, by the way, are places that have been hit by lone shooters or terrorists. So my book is written from the perspective of what you, the average person, can kind of do to protect yourself. And the reason I did that is, you know, even though we have all these security experts, all these terrorist experts, they're not still stopping the terrorists from attacking. So, you know, they seem to be attacking more frequently, and they seem to use a lot of different varieties of weapons to attack now, going to automobiles, for example. So I wasn't getting a lot of sense that what they were saying to people about what you need to do to protect yourself had any substance to it. As a person listening to all this on the other side of the TV, I'm going, so you're telling me to be alert, but what does that mean? And then you're saying, you hear law enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security saying, hey, look, if you see something, say something. And I'm going, see what? What is it I'm supposed to see? I don't know what to look for to see anything. So I'm not sure what that's all about. I don't know what to do. And that's not being put across the airways through the media. And there's no formal communication program for the average person to even remotely understand what they need to be looking for. And it gets rather confusing because the things they do discuss are really designed for professionals like Secret Service and anti-terrorist groups and highly trained terrorist activity groups like the New York City Police have. So when you get into something like predictive profiling, which I talk about, the average person is sitting there going, what is that? I thought we weren't supposed to profile people. So it gets to be rather confusing. Now, the other thing that I noticed about these people talking about security is the assumption that everybody is, you know, wanting to understand how to do this or needing to learn how to do this. And that might, in fact, be the case if we really want to be secure. But that, you have to understand this is coming from a group of people whose whole life and income and their professional work is in anti-terrorism and protection and security. The average person, me and you out there, we don't have that kind of desire. In fact, I equated it to when I became a personal trainer. I thought, wow, everybody wants to learn how to lose weight and be fit. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. There are a lot of people who have a desire to do that, but they're not prepared to think about it or go that way. In fact, there are a lot of people who would going the other way and saying, hey, let's talk about how being heavy and having a high fat content, into the obese range isn't bad for you. I mean, you're not a bad person because of that. And the fact is, you're not a bad person for that, but it's still not healthy for you. So that's the way this is about terrorism. And people have this mindset, look, that happened in Barcelona, Spain, or that happened to Orlando, Florida, or San Bernardino, California. That's not going to happen to me, and so they don't want to think about it. They don't want to talk about it, and that's the average person, okay? That's the average person who's hearing about terrorism increasing on a regular basis, and people beginning to move from guns to stabbings to automobiles, and it's beginning to happen randomly by not large groups of people attacking like Paris, but individuals like Manchester and Orlando and Barcelona and the two people in San Bernardino. So, yes, the world is becoming more violent, but people don't want to hear it. They don't want to understand it, and that's because it seems to be really too difficult, and that's how professionals tend to explain things. If you're trying to teach somebody or explain something as a professional to somebody on TV, you're probably using jargon like predictive profiling or profiling in general, or other kinds of terms that the average day citizen, we can't relate to. In fact, not only can we not relate to it, we don't want to relate to it. We don't want to hear that in Mexico it is becoming more dangerous to travel, and you're finding things like tainted liquor in major all-inclusive resorts in Cancun, and kidnapping is on the rise. People don't want to hear that. It frustrates them. In fact, it scares them. It scares them. And then on top of that, if you don't offer anything to help them, that's where it really becomes a problem. So in the process of writing my book, what I came up with was, first of all, protection is prevention. It's better to protect yourself against a threat than defend yourself against an attack. Okay? If you can protect yourself against a threat, it means you are eliminating the potential of the threat being there. Now, it can't be 100% anytime, anywhere. We all know that. There's nothing anybody can provide you that will guarantee 100% you won't be attacked at some point in time. However, having a preventive approach to things, sort of a protective strategy, if you will, in your everyday routine, and understanding how to do that without it being overcomplicated with things like predictive profiling, that you begin to understand that if you do just a few things, or you're aware, learn how to become aware of a few things, that you can possibly eliminate a potential threat being within your proximity. That's what this book is. So I asked a bunch of people, what do you think about protection? And I was a little, we really don't need to worry about that stuff. And I'm going, well, what about this and what about that? And they go, yeah, that happened. I said, well, do you go to those places? Do you go to malls? Do you go to restaurants? Do you go to theaters? Do you go to Cancun? yeah, we go. Well, couldn't that be you there? I guess it could, but probabilities, and they get in statistics. But when we get to talking about it, they begin to admit, yeah, I'm beginning to have a little bit of more concerned than I had in the past. But I don't know what to do about it. And so the first thing is beginning to understand that you have to resist the temptation of saying, this couldn't happen to me. And begin to think like, hey, this could happen to me. Now, you don't want to go to the point where that becomes paranoia and you start worrying about every little thing that happens. That's not the point. The point is if you believe that could happen to you and you take just the amount of time it takes you to basically become familiar with what seeing something really means, what that something is, how criminals operate, how terrorists operate, what to look for in terms of identifying potential suspicious behavior, and then determining whether that suspicious behavior might actually be a threat and how to handle that. So I cover that, the idea of the culture and what the method of operations are for terrorists and criminals. And where did I get all that? I got it from all those professionals that are telling you about it on TV, but somehow never put it out to you in a way that makes sense to you, the average person. Okay? They write all their books, they do all their videos, they do all their course training for other technical security professionals. This book is for you. This book is written by me, the average guy, for the average citizen. Okay, so it's pretty simplified. It doesn't go into great detail and depth, but it gives you the basics. So I hope you understand a little bit more about the book now. I'm not encouraging you to go buy the book. That's up to you. But they are there. They're on Amazon. They'll be in the description below here if you're interested. You have a great day. You be safe. And like me, get out there and create some bad guy free zones for yourself.